So now let's talk about altering your tables, basically modifying your schema once it's already been created and dropping tables in case you need to get rid of tables for some reason. Now the important thing to remember whenever you're dealing with database systems is you want to use the alter statement as little as possible. Your job as a real technology professional is to do all the work on the whiteboard before you start typing a line of code to verify what you're creating is what you actually want to be creating so that you do not have to alter things in the future. You do have to realize that altering a table is a destructive process. If you remove a column in the table, basically all the data in that column goes away in literally a nanosecond, right? So if you say, oh, I no longer need the size of my students anymore, I'm going to do that, but for some reason you're kind of tired, and instead of putting in size, you put in sex, or you put in age, all of a sudden that entire column with all the values are completely gone, right? And so basically that's where you really need to be thinking about how you're going to be building out your database before you start writing your first line of code. Before you create a table, before you write any Python, you go to the whiteboard. When you go to real technology companies and real startup companies, what you'll notice is whiteboards are everywhere, right? You go into a conference room and basically it's either windows and whiteboards, and many times the windows are used as whiteboards, and that's not some artistic flourish. That's how we do our job. Our job is actually done on the whiteboard. Writing code is what we do after we get done with the hard work. All right, so I really want to hammer that home. Now to make sure you don't have to watch me, fat finger my way through typing out all these commands, we're just going to walk through this in the notes, right? I want you though, at home, you should take these notes and you should open a SQLite shell and you should actually do all this work. It is important to understand, especially with programming and coding, you want to make this muscle memory. You want to do this kind of thing so many times, it just becomes automatic. You don't even think about putting a semicolon in because of course you put a semicolon in. You don't want to think about closing a parentheses or closing a quotation mark because of course you do. It just becomes natural. Again, it is very important if you actually want to become a programmer. It sounds stupid to say, but you gotta program. Right? The name, for this whole thing that I'm doing is called Silicon Dojo. The reason it's called Silicon Dojo is I spent, somewhere between 50 to 20 years of doing martial arts. And what I can tell you is when you walk into a martial arts studio, they will tell you how to punch as the first thing that you do. Like they're going to tell you how to punch, they're going to tell you like inward block and outward block, and there you go. Right, now you know how to punch and block, now don't you? No, you don't. No, you don't. Then what you do is you repeat 10,000 times the punches and the blocks, and then you go onto the mat and try to deal with it in a real life situation. And then after you get your ass whooped quite a few times, you actually start, it's like, oh, that's how it's supposed to be. Again, it's very interesting, like with a punch. It's amazing that first time when it just becomes natural, right? Like if you've ever done martial arts, they talk about that. Your entire body goes into it, right? So it's not this, like it's not this, it's not even just this, right? When you punch, your foot goes forward, your hips turn, everything drives into that punch, right? Well, I can explain that to you. I just explained to you how to punch, didn't I? Yeah, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. Go out there 10,000 times, try to do the repetitions, and then get on the mat and do it another 10,000 times. And after a while, right, it'll start to make sense to you. And that's the important thing too. With all these classes that we do with programming, make sure that you're actually going to the terminal or you're going to VS Code or whatever else, and you're doing the work. I can tell you how to punch. That's not going to teach you how to punch. I can walk you through this. That is not teaching you how to do it. Again, off my soapbox, but that is an important thing to remember here. So anyways, we're just going to go through to make life easier here from the notes. So I deleted my example.db database that we had before, so I'm going to be starting from a clean database. So SQLite 3, example.db, that is creating a new example.db database. Create table people, and we're simply going to have it be name and age, close with a semicolon at the end, because again, we just want this to be simple since we're going to be modifying it. Then we're going to come down here to renaming a table. So renaming a table can be an important thing where, especially with naming conventions, like you may just, I don't know, you just have a bad day. We all have bad days, right? Maybe the naming conventions in your company is everything is supposed to be singular, or everything is supposed to be plural. And so if it's supposed to be singular, and so you put in students, and you put in records, and you put in invoices, right? Everything else is fine, you just got to rename the table, right? So all you want to do is take it from like invoices to invoice, students to students, or vice versa, or something else. That is where you can rename a table. So you're going to say alter. So alter is going to be the start of the SQL statement. Table, a table. Old name, so whatever the old name is, so people, so we created this table called people, so we're going to alter the table people, we're going to rename to, and then whatever the new name is, right? So we're going to rename people to something else, and we're going to close with that semicolon. So if we come here, again, this is a new database with a new table. If we're in the SQLite prompt, we can do dot tables, and that will show us what tables are in this database, so we have people. Right? Again, and dot tables, that is not SQL, that is a command to the database server. So we're going to say here is alter table people, rename to records. Right? So we're just renaming people to records. We do dot tables again, and we will see that now people is going to be called records, so we've renamed that table. Now what if we want to add a column to a table, which is something you should almost never do. You should never do. If you use this command right here, it means you did not spend enough time on the whiteboard, which means you should get a smack on the hand. Basically, I'm going to show you how to do this, and then you should never, ever, 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 ever actually do this. But anyways, if you need to add a column to the table, again, very simple. Alter table, whatever the table name is, add a column, whatever the column name is, and whatever the data type is, right? So we go here, again, we're still in the SQL shell. So we say dot schema. So dot schema then is going to show us our tables, but also show us how those tables were created, right? So dot schema, and it's going to show us create table. So records, since we renamed people. We originally called it people, but now it's called records. So it's create table, records, name, and age. Okay, so that's the what we currently have. So then we're going to say alter table records, add column, size text. So we're adding a column for, let's say, shirt size, and then the data type for that is going to be text. We do dot schema again, create table records. We now have name, age, and then we have size as a data type of text. So that is how you're able to add a column to a table, though you should never, ever, 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 ever do that. Now what if you need to rename a column? So that's not so bad. That's still, you still deserve punishment, but I can forgive you after a long period of time. It won't be today or tomorrow, but maybe next month I'll be able to forgive you if you screwed up the name of a column. Again, the same thing, like we called it a size for the column name. Maybe we want it to be shirt size. Or again, plural versus singular, that kind of thing. Again, can happen in the real world, right? So to rename a column, alter table, whatever the table name is. Rename column, so rename column, whatever the column name is, to whatever the new name is. Right, so we come down here, again, we look at schema again, dot schema, create table records, name, age, size, text. That's what we had before. Alter table records, rename, column, size to shirt underscore size. We do the schema again, we now see create table records, name, age, shirt underscore size, as text. So that is how you're able to rename a column. Still not a great practice, but a forgivable thing to do. And then you can delete an entire column or drop a column in database lingo, which is, I'm not even sure I should teach you how to do this. This is the realm of pure danger you get into in the IT technology world. The important thing to understand when you drop a column is when you drop the column, everything in that column goes away forever and ever and ever, and basically consider it completely and utterly irrevocable, right? You're not going to be able to get that information back. If you drop a table and then go, oopsie, that might be your job. You might be getting fired. One of the things that I would tell you, again, with dropping or deleting columns, I know there's a lot of, again, I'm an Aspie, I get it. There's a lot of folks out there that like to keep their databases clean, right? If I don't need the column, it should go the hell away. One of the things that I'll just put out there is your column is just going to be text. Unless you have the blob data type, which you should not have, it's just going to be text. Right? So how much space, how much storage does that column actually take up in your entire database? Right? If you have a 10 terabyte database and you have one column of information, again, size, sex, something like that, how much space is that column actually taking up? Is it worth the risk of dropping that column in case you might need it in the future, right? I would argue most of the time, especially when you're in a production environment, if it's a lab environment, if you're still testing in the whole 9 yards, you might want to kill it now so it doesn't go into production. But once you're in a production environment, I would say it's really, really, really risky to drop a column, and I would not want to do it, again, unless there is a really, really significant reason. Again, maybe you had like an intern create your database. Basically, they were using the blob data type, so files, PDFs, and MP3s were directly going into the database server. You realized, ooh, that's a bad idea, so you created pointers to where the files are, and now you want to drop that column so that data goes away. Again, that's the kind of thing that you might want to do, but make sure you create a backup. Make sure you know exactly what you're doing. Make sure you talk with all vested interests to verify what's going on. Because this is all it takes. This is all it takes to get fired. To get fired. So to drop a column, or to delete a column, which is drop in the database word, alter table, table name, drop column, and whatever the column name is. That's it. That's all it takes for you to get fired and lose all your equity. Right? So from the SQLite shell, alter table records, drop column shirt size. We do .schema again, and also show create table records, and we'll simply show name and age. Shirt size is now gone, along with all the data that was in that column. And now the final thing that you may want to do is drop a table. So when we say drop, again, it means delete in database lingo. And yeah, you can't do it. I would question your life choices as a technology professional if you ever have to use this command. But you can do it. To drop a table, to delete a table, basically all it is from the SQLite shell, drop table, and then whatever the table name is. And it go poof. It's not going to say, do you really want to do it? It's not going to say, confirm by typing yes. It's not going to do anything other than simply delete the entire table, again, with all the data involved. So we drop table records. Again, that records table we've been dealing with for this whole class. We go back to .schema, and you get no response because there's nothing to say, because no tables exist. That is all you have to do in order to drop or delete a table in the SQLite world, or basically with structured query language in general. So there you go. You now know how to alter tables or drop tables. Again, I will hammer this home for the 500th time. Basically, this is a lesson hopefully you don't really have to use in the real world. Again, for lab environments, testing environments, as you're learning stuff, fine. You don't want to do this in the production world. These can be destructive processes, and if you don't fully understand, again, remember those back-end programming languages are going to be communicating with things like these tables. So if you modify the table name in the database but that table name isn't changed in Python or Node or whatever else that's trying to reference it, you can run into major issues there. Again, adding columns, renaming columns, changing things, this can be all kinds of bad. That is why tech companies have so many whiteboards. When you go into a real tech company and you see the number of whiteboards they have, it literally looks idiotic. You really do sit there as a noob and you're like, really? Do they really need this many whiteboards? And the answer is yes, because I want you to grasp this, again, especially if you're going to become a professional. Our job, what we get paid for, is done on the whiteboard. This is where the real money is at. This stuff over here, this is just basically how you turn what you design on the whiteboard into an actual product. At the end of it's one of those things, like, you need to know this so that you have value, again, so you can do the whiteboard stuff. This is like what gets you the job, but the whiteboard is what allows you to keep the job, if that makes sense. So anyways, that's how you're able to alter and drop tables. Hopefully, you will never use this information again.